Hey Taurus, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this incredibly intense reading, I need to be absolutely clear that this is a general reading for entertainment purposes only. I'm interpreting the energy I see in these cards based on my intuition and years of reading tarot, and you should take what resonates with your personal situation and leave what doesn't. This isn't meant to replace professional advice, whether legal, financial, medical, or psychological. What I'm picking up today carries some serious weight, and I felt this urgency when I sat down to read for you because the energy around secrets, deliberate cover-ups, and paid silence is screaming to be acknowledged right now. Someone in your orbit, whether in your personal life or professional sphere, has been operating behind a carefully constructed facade, and they've invested significant resources into making sure certain truths never reached you. I'm talking about actual money-changing hands, favors being called in, people being positioned strategically like chess pieces, all designed to keep you moving through your life without ever discovering what was really happening in the shadows around you. But here's the thing about truth that people who trade in deception always seem to forget. It doesn't stay buried forever. Karma doesn't accept bribes, the universe doesn't honor non-disclosure agreements, and eventually, every secret demands to be spoken aloud. As I shuffled these cards for you, I felt this building pressure, like watching a dam develop tiny cracks that spread and multiply until the whole structure gives way. The energy isn't scattered or chaotic, though. It's purposeful, methodical, and absolutely inevitable. Whatever has been hidden is pushing its way to the surface with a force that can't be stopped or redirected anymore. I want you to understand right from the start that this reading isn't designed to create paranoia or fear in your life. This is about validation and preparation. If you've had suspicions that you couldn't quite articulate, if you felt that persistent nagging sense that something in your reality wasn't adding up correctly, if you've questioned your own perception because everyone around you seemed to be presenting a completely different version of events, this reading is your confirmation that your intuition has been accurate all along. You weren't imagining things. You weren't being paranoid or overly suspicious. Your internal warning system was picking up on real deception, real manipulation, real danger that others either couldn't see or chose not to acknowledge. The 10 cards I pulled for you today create a complete narrative arc from initial intuitive knowing through calculated deception, inevitable exposure, karmic justice, and ultimately your emergence into a clearer, more authentic reality where truth replaces fiction, and your perception is validated rather than questioned. The first card that presented itself is the High Priestess, and the moment she appeared in this position, I felt this deep, settled knowing move through my entire body. This isn't just any card opening your reading, Taurus. This is the card of hidden knowledge, intuitive wisdom, and the secrets that exist in the space between what's said and what's true. The High Priestess sits between two pillars, one black and one white, representing duality and the threshold between the seen and unseen worlds. She holds a scroll partially concealed by her robes, and she's crowned with the moon in various phases, showing her connection to cycles, rhythms, and the ebb and flow of what's revealed versus what remains hidden. What I'm picking up immediately is that on some level, whether conscious or subconscious, you already know. You might not have dates, names, specific details, or concrete proof that would hold up in any formal setting, but your intuition, your gut instinct, that quiet inner voice that speaks in feelings rather than words, has been collecting data and filing it away in your subconscious mind. The High Priestess doesn't reveal everything at once, because that's not how intuitive knowing operates. It comes in whispers during quiet moments, in dreams that feel significant, even if you can't remember all the details when you wake, in sudden flashes of clarity that arrive when you're doing something completely unrelated, and your conscious mind is occupied elsewhere. I'm seeing that someone in your life has worked extremely hard to keep you looking in the wrong direction, to keep you doubting your perceptions and second-guessing your instincts, to make you feel like you were imagining connections that weren't really there, or being paranoid about situations that had innocent explanations. But the High Priestess doesn't lie, and she doesn't make mistakes. She represents the part of you that sees beyond the surface performance people put on, beyond the carefully crafted explanations that sound reasonable but feel wrong, beyond the smiles that don't quite reach the eyes, and the reassurances that leave you feeling less rather than more secure. What I'm picking up is that you've had multiple instances, probably more than you've consciously counted, where something felt off in a way you couldn't articulate. Maybe timelines didn't quite line up when you thought about them carefully. Maybe someone's emotional reaction seemed disproportionate or mismatched to the situation they claimed was happening. Maybe you noticed small inconsistencies in stories that were told and retold, details that shifted slightly each time. Maybe you felt a shift in energy when certain topics came up, a tension or guardedness that appeared and then was quickly covered over. You might have brought up these concerns and been made to feel like you were overreacting, being too sensitive, looking for problems that didn't exist. Or maybe you kept them to yourself because you didn't want to seem accusatory or untrusting when you couldn't point to anything concrete. The High Priestess is your validation that those instincts were accurate every single time. Your inner knowing was picking up on the energy of deception, on the vibration of lies, on the presence of hidden agendas, even when you couldn't see the evidence with your physical eyes or prove it with logic. She's also showing me that not everything has been revealed to you yet in terms of conscious awareness, but it's coming soon. The veil between what's hidden and what's known is thinning rapidly now, becoming more transparent, and you're about to receive confirmation of things you've only sensed or suspected up until this moment. This card in the opening position tells me that your intuitive hits, all those moments when you felt something was wrong, have been preparing you for these revelations so that when they arrive fully in your conscious awareness, you won't be completely blindsided or shattered. Some part of you, the part the High Priestess represents, has been quietly bracing for this truth, getting ready to face realities that others assumed you'd never discover or piece together. The Ten of Pentacles moved into the reading next, and this is where the story shifts from your internal knowing to the external mechanisms of deception. This card typically represents legacy, family wealth, long-term security, generational prosperity, and the kind of established stability that comes from accumulated resources and strong foundations. But in the specific context of this reading about cover-ups and paid silence, I'm seeing something far more calculated and strategic. The Ten of Pentacles shows an older figure, often interpreted as a patriarch or matriarch, surrounded by family members, with dogs nearby, and an archway decorated with pentacles symbolizing material security and abundance. What I'm picking up is that someone used their resources, and I mean their money, their social position, their professional connections, their accumulated influence and power to build a protective barrier around their actions and choices. This wasn't casual lying or spontaneous deception. This was planned, funded, and executed with the kind of thoroughness that comes from having both motive and means. The Ten of Pentacles shows a system, a structure, a network of people and assets that creates stability and protection for those at the center of it. What I'm sensing specifically is that whoever is at the heart of these secrets didn't just hide things quietly and hope no one would notice. They actively invested in the cover-up. They used financial resources to ensure certain people stayed quiet, certain stories never surfaced or gained traction, certain evidence disappeared or was never documented in the first place. This could manifest as actual monetary payments to individuals who agreed to sign non-disclosure agreements or accept settlements in exchange for their silence. It could be more subtle and socially embedded, like using their position to offer career opportunities, social advantages, or access to networks for people who played along with the narrative they wanted to establish and maintain. The Ten of Pentacles can represent generational patterns passing down through family lines, and I'm getting that this might not be the first time this person or system has operated this way. There could be a history, possibly spanning years or even decades, of using money and influence to control narratives, protect reputations, and ensure that the public-facing image remains pristine and untarnished, regardless of what's actually happening behind closed doors or in private spaces where witnesses are few and accountability is minimal. What's particularly significant about this card appearing right now in your reading is that the very resources and systems they thought would protect them indefinitely are beginning to show cracks and weaknesses. The foundation they built on secrets and silenced voices isn't as stable or permanent as they believed it would be. Money can absolutely buy temporary silence, especially from people who are vulnerable or dependent or simply pragmatic about their own survival and security. But it cannot buy permanent truth suppression because truth has its own energy, its own life force, and its own timeline for emergence. The Ten of Pentacles upright rather than reversed tells me I'm seeing the mechanism itself, the actual structure of how the cover-up was funded and maintained over time. You're about to see exactly how much effort, planning, resources, and coordination went into keeping you and possibly others from knowing the full truth of what was happening. This might be genuinely shocking when you realize the extent of what was done, the number of people who were either directly involved or passively complicit, the amount of forethought that went into maintaining this elaborate facade. But seeing the structure clearly and completely is actually necessary for you to understand that this wasn't about you being gullible, naive, or missing obvious signs that anyone else would have caught. This was about someone or someone's deliberately constructing an elaborate system specifically designed to deceive, with multiple layers of protection and misdirection built in. Now the Tower crashes into this reading, and I actually took a sharp breath and felt my chest tighten when this card appeared, because it is the ultimate exposer in the entire tarot deck. The Tower is the card of sudden revelation that cannot be unseen, of structures built on lies and false foundations crashing down spectacularly, of lightning striking from the heavens and illuminating what was carefully hidden in darkness. Everything the Ten of Pentacles just showed us about the carefully constructed systems and paid protections, the Tower is here to demolish all of it completely and irreversibly. This is divine intervention at its most dramatic karmic justice, arriving like a thunderbolt. The moment when the universe itself says, enough is enough, and strips away the false walls that have been hiding truth from light. I'm seeing that this revelation isn't going to unfold gently or gradually, with small pieces of information trickling out over time. It's going to be sudden, shocking in its completeness, and absolutely undeniable, even to people who would prefer to keep believing comfortable lies. The Tower shows figures falling from a burning structure, their bodies in free fall. And while that imagery is dramatic and can feel frightening, it's telling us that people are going to lose their positions. Their carefully maintained images and reputations are going to shatter beyond repair. And what they thought was a secure fortress of lies and misdirection is going to be exposed as fragile and fundamentally unsustainable. What fascinates me about the Tower appearing in this particular reading is that it's not random destruction or punishment for punishment's sake. It's cosmic correction. It's the universe restoring truth and integrity by forcibly removing what was false and harmful. For you personally, Taurus, this Tower moment might feel chaotic and disorienting when it happens, because revelations of this magnitude can shake your sense of reality even when you suspected something was wrong all along. You might learn things that fundamentally change how you see certain people, certain situations, maybe even certain periods of your own life as you recontextualize past events with this new information and understanding. The ground might feel unstable for a period as your understanding of your reality reorganizes itself around truth rather than the fiction you were being fed. But I want you to really understand that the Tower, despite its dramatic and sometimes frightening imagery, is ultimately liberating rather than destructive to anything real or valuable. Yes, it's destructive to false structures, to lies, to facades, to carefully maintained illusions. But it's profoundly liberating to truth, authenticity, and your right to live in reality rather than someone else's manufactured version of events. The secrets that are coming to light were creating an energetic burden, even if you weren't fully conscious of carrying that weight. Living in close proximity to deception, even when you don't know the full extent of it, affects your energy field, your peace of mind, your nervous system, your ability to trust your own perception of reality. The Tower clears all of that away in one dramatic sweep. After this card's energy moves through completely, you'll be standing in a landscape of truth. It might be messier and less pretty than the carefully maintained lie you were presented with, but it will be real and solid, and you can build something authentic and lasting on that foundation. I'm also sensing very strongly that the Tower moment might involve something becoming public knowledge, not just revealed to you in private conversations or personal discoveries. There's an element of exposure that goes beyond personal revelation into collective witnessing. Others will see what was hidden too, and that shared witnessing is actually part of the karmic rebalancing that's occurring. The Queen of Swords came through immediately after the Tower, and I felt this fierce protector energy arrive in the reading like a cool, clear wind. After the Tower brings everything crashing down in dramatic revelation, the Queen of Swords represents your mental clarity, your ability to see and speak truth without the distortion of emotion or the fog of denial, and your capacity to make sharp, clean cuts when necessary for your well-being and integrity. This queen sits upright on her throne with her sword pointed toward the sky, and she represents someone who has been through significant pain, who has faced harsh and disappointing truths about people they trusted or situations they believed in, and who has emerged from that experience with the hard-won ability to discern reality with surgical precision. This is who you're becoming through this process, Taurus, and who you need to embody moving forward. The Queen of Swords doesn't sugarcoat reality to make it more palatable. She doesn't make excuses for people's harmful behavior just because understanding their wounds or motivations might make their actions more comprehensible. She doesn't allow sentiment, nostalgia, hope, or fear to cloud her judgment about what is actually happening versus what she wishes were happening. When you learn the full extent of what's been hidden from you, when you see clearly the mechanisms of manipulation and the scope of the cover-up, this Queen of Swords energy is what will help you process it with clarity and make necessary decisions from a place of wisdom rather than reactive emotion or trauma response. I'm sensing that you might be someone who naturally tends to give people the benefit of the doubt, who wants to believe the best in others and see their potential rather than their failures, who might even reflexively make excuses for behavior that doesn't sit right with you because you can understand the pressures or wounds or circumstances that might have led to those choices. The Queen of Swords is here to tell you clearly that those days are over now. She's giving you explicit permission to trust your intellect and your observations, to honor what you know to be true based on evidence and patterns rather than what you wish were true based on hope or history, and to act accordingly without guilt, without second-guessing, without apologizing for your clarity. This card is also telling me that you're going to need to communicate some hard truths yourself in the aftermath of these revelations. You might need to have difficult conversations where you clearly state what you now know and what that means for your relationships or circumstances moving forward. You might need to set firm boundaries, possibly for the first time with certain people, and make it absolutely clear that you won't tolerate continued deception, manipulation, or gaslighting. The Queen of Swords speaks with directness and authority, without unnecessary harshness, but also without softening her message to protect others from discomfort they've earned through their choices. That's the energy you're being called to embody now. No more diluting your words to protect other people's feelings when they showed no concern for protecting your right to truth and informed consent in your own life. No more questioning your perceptions when evidence and your intuition align to confirm them. No more allowing yourself to be gaslit, confused, or made to feel like you're the problem when you're simply responding reasonably to unreasonable circumstances. The sword this queen carries is double-edged, representing both the truth that cuts through lies and confusion, and the discernment that separates what genuinely serves you from what serves others at your expense. You're going to use both edges skillfully in the coming period. The Four of Swords appeared next, and this card's presence caught my attention immediately because it's creating a very specific and important message about the necessity of strategic pause and mental recovery. This card shows a figure lying in complete rest, almost like a tomb effigy, with 3 swords mounted on the wall and 1 sword lying beneath the resting figure, and it represents a necessary period of retreat, stillness, and integration after battle or intense mental activity. After the Tower's explosive revelations, and as you step into Queen of Swords clarity and direct communication, you're going to need time to process everything you've learned. And the Four of Swords is telling me that this isn't weakness, avoidance, or denial. This is strategic withdrawal to gather your thoughts, allow your nervous system to settle after shock, heal your mind and heart from the impact of discovering you were systematically deceived, and plan your next moves from a centered, grounded place rather than from a state of shock, hurt, or reactive anger. I'm sensing that when the truth comes out fully, there might be significant pressure from others for you to react immediately, to make decisions about relationships or situations right away, to engage in confrontations or detailed discussions before you've had time to fully process what you've learned and what it means. The Four of Swords is giving you explicit permission to step back from all of that pressure. You don't owe anyone immediate responses, reactions, decisions, or engagement. You have the absolute right to take whatever time you need to let information settle into your consciousness, to consult privately with trusted advisors or friends who have your genuine best interests at heart, to sit with your feelings without judgment, and to think through implications and options before you act or communicate. This card is also showing me something interesting about the person or people who created these secrets and invested in their cover-up. While you're in this Four of Swords, resting and processing energy, holding your peace and your own counsel, they're likely going to be in panic mode. They're going to be scrambling, trying to do damage control, attempting to get ahead of the narrative, possibly reaching out to you or to others to try to manage how information spreads and how they're perceived. Your stillness and silence during this strategic pause period might actually be more powerful and unsettling to them than any immediate confrontation would be, because they can't predict or control what you're thinking, planning, or preparing to do. There's tremendous strength in the pause, in the refusal to react on someone else's timeline. The Four of Swords also suggests that you might need to temporarily remove yourself physically from certain environments or limit your contact with certain people while you're in this processing phase. This is entirely about protecting your mental and emotional space while you integrate these revelations and decide how you want to move forward based on your values and needs rather than others' expectations or demands. Don't let anyone rush you through this necessary period of rest and reflection. Your clarity and peace of mind are worth protecting. The sun blazed into this reading with such bright, warm energy that the shift was immediately palpable and felt like stepping out of a cold, dark room into brilliant daylight. After the destruction and exposure of the Tower, after the mental processing and strategic pause of the Four of Swords, the sun represents the light at the end of this tunnel. The joy and vitality and clarity that comes after truth has been fully established and integrated. The sun represents illumination in its purest, most complete form. Everything that was done in darkness and shadow, everything that was hidden behind closed doors and covered up with money and influence, is now fully visible in the bright, unforgiving light of day, where nothing can hide and no shadow remains. But the sun isn't only about exposure and revelation. It's fundamentally about the freedom, vitality, happiness, and authentic self-expression that becomes possible when you're finally living in truth, rather than navigating through fog and confusion. I'm seeing that once you've moved through the initial shock of the Tower's revelation and completed your Four of Swords processing period, you're going to experience a liberation that feels like stepping out of a dim, confusing, slightly suffocating room into bright sunshine where you can breathe deeply and see for miles in every direction. Suddenly, everything makes complete sense. All the pieces that didn't fit before, all the feelings you couldn't explain or justify, all the suspicions you doubted or talked yourself out of, all of it clicks into place with perfect, crystalline clarity. The confusion lifts entirely, and you can see the whole picture, including how all the parts relate to each other and why things happened the way they did. The sun also represents your innocence and authenticity being restored to you after a period when both were compromised by others' deception. When someone deceives you systematically and works deliberately to keep you in the dark about things that directly affect your life, it can make you feel foolish afterward, like you should have known better or seen through it sooner, like there's something wrong with your judgment or perception. The sun is here to tell you clearly and emphatically that your trust wasn't foolishness and your openness wasn't naive stupidity. These are beautiful, valuable qualities that allow for genuine connection and authentic relationship. And the fact that someone exploited those qualities says absolutely everything about their character and absolutely nothing negative about your worth, intelligence, or value. I'm also picking up very strongly that the sun brings witnesses and support into your experience. You're not going to be alone in seeing what's been revealed or in validating that the deception was real and harmful. Others will confirm your experience, support your interpretation of events, and possibly come forward with their own pieces of the puzzle, their own experiences of being deceived or manipulated by the same individual or system. This collective recognition and validation is deeply healing because it reinforces that you weren't wrong, you weren't imagining connections that didn't exist, and you're not alone in having been affected by these lies. The sun's energy is also strongly associated with children, innocence, and authentic joy. And I'm wondering if part of what was covered up involved someone protecting their image as a good person, family member, or respected community figure when their private actions and choices told a very different and much darker story. The sun exposes that hypocrisy completely and allows truth to replace carefully managed reputation. The Nine of Swords appeared in the reading, and when this card emerged, the energy in the space shifted noticeably to something heavier, more anxious and troubled. The Nine of Swords shows a figure sitting upright in bed in the middle of the night, head in hands in a posture of despair or overwhelm, with 9 swords mounted on the wall behind them, like intrusive thoughts made visible. This card represents anxiety, nightmares, mental torment, and the experience of being kept awake by troubling thoughts that circle endlessly without resolution. In the specific context of this reading about secrets and cover-ups coming to light, I'm picking up 2 distinct but related messages from this card's appearance. First and most directly, the Nine of Swords is showing me what you've been experiencing during the period when you knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it or get anyone else to acknowledge it, when your intuition was screaming warnings, but you were being told by others that you were imagining things or overreacting. The Nine of Swords represents those sleepless nights when you lay awake replaying conversations and trying to figure out what didn't add up. The mental loops of trying to make sense of contradictions between what you were told and what you observed. The anxiety of feeling like you might be losing touch with reality because what you're perceiving doesn't match what everyone else claims to see. This has been the emotional and psychological cost of being kept deliberately in the dark while your inner knowing tried desperately to get your conscious attention and make you see what was really happening. The worry, the self-doubt, the mental exhaustion of trying to figure out a puzzle when you don't even know for certain that a puzzle exists. All of that falls under the Nine of Swords energy. But there's a second layer to this card that's equally important and speaks to karmic justice. The Nine of Swords is also showing me what the person or people behind the cover-up are experiencing right now or are about to experience very soon. As the tower brings everything crashing down and the sun exposes what was hidden to the bright light of day, they're entering their own Nine of Swords period. The anxiety of knowing the truth is coming out and being unable to stop it. The sleepless nights spent trying to figure out how to manage the fallout and control the damage. The mental torment of facing consequences they thought they'd successfully avoided forever. The nightmares about being exposed and losing everything they've protected. There's a profound karmic justice in this card appearing in your reading because it shows that the psychological burden they tried to avoid by lying and covering up is now completely unavoidable for them. They're going to experience the very anxiety, fear, and mental distress they caused you to feel through their deception. The Nine of Swords also serves as validation that what you've been feeling wasn't an overreaction or unnecessary worry. If your mind has been troubled, if you've had difficulty sleeping or felt hypervigilant, if you've experienced anxiety that seemed to come from nowhere or felt disproportionate to what you consciously knew, this card confirms that you are picking up on real danger, real deception, real threat to your well-being. Your nervous system was actually responding appropriately to a genuine threat, even when your conscious mind didn't have all the information or evidence yet. As truth fully emerges and the sun brings its complete clarity, your Nine of Swords energy will dissolve and release because you'll finally have confirmation and can act from knowledge and clarity rather than suspicion and confusion. Meanwhile, those who deceived you will fully enter their own Nine of Swords period, and that's not something you need to cause, orchestrate, or feel guilty about. Karma handles its own accounting without requiring your participation or energy. The moon moved into the reading, and this card's appearance is fascinating because it represents the realm of illusions, things not being what they seem, subconscious fears and hidden motivations, and the deliberate creation of confusion. The moon card depicts a path winding between two towers toward distant mountains, with a dog and wolf howling at a large moon overhead, and in the water below, a crayfish begins to emerge from the depths. The entire scene is painted in twilight, rather than full darkness or full light, creating an atmosphere where you can see shapes and outlines, but not clearly enough to be absolutely certain of what you're looking at. In the context of this reading about cover-ups and paid silence, the moon is showing me the specific psychological tactics that were used to keep you confused, doubting yourself, and unable to trust your own perceptions. This card's energy is intentionally disorienting. It's the experience of twilight where nothing is quite clear, where shadows can look like threats, or threats can hide in shadows, where your eyes play tricks and your mind second-guesses what it sees. I'm sensing that the person or people behind these secrets and cover-ups used moon energy very deliberately and skillfully. They created situations and narratives where you couldn't quite pin down what was wrong, where things seemed off, but you couldn't articulate why or point to specific evidence, where your concerns could be easily dismissed as overreaction, paranoia, or imagination. Gaslighting is a classic moon tactic, making you question your memory, your perceptions, your right to feel suspicious or concerned, telling you that things didn't happen the way you remember them happening, or that you're making something out of nothing. The moon also represents secrets and hidden enemies, people who present one face to you while operating with completely different motivations beneath the surface. I'm picking up that someone in your life has been presenting themselves as one thing, playing a particular role, or wearing a specific mask, while their actual character, intentions, and actions were something very different beneath that carefully maintained exterior. The dog and wolf in the card represent tame versus wild, domesticated versus dangerous, civilized versus primal, and it's suggesting that someone showed you their tame, domesticated, safe, trustworthy version while keeping their wild, self-serving, potentially harmful nature carefully hidden and controlled in your presence. What's particularly powerful about the moon appearing after the sun in this reading sequence is that it's showing you the contrast between the two states. You've experienced the sun's clarity, the full illumination of truth, and now you're being shown the moon energy to understand how it was used against you. This isn't regression back into confusion. This is education and pattern recognition. You're learning to recognize the signs and feelings of manipulation, the specific sensation of being in moon energy fog, so that you can identify it immediately and trust yourself completely if anyone ever tries to use these tactics on you again. The moon is teaching you to trust yourself, especially when others are trying to make you doubt, to honor your intuitive unease, even when you can't logically explain or prove what you're feeling, and to recognize when someone is deliberately keeping you in a state of confusion because your clarity and knowledge would threaten their agenda and expose what they're trying to hide. The Hermit appeared in the reading with this wise, solitary, deeply introspective energy, and I felt immediately that this card honors the journey you've been on, even before these revelations came fully to light. The hermit stands alone on a mountain peak, elevated above the world below, holding a lantern that contains a six-pointed star, and he represents the seeker who withdraws from the noise and distraction of the world to find inner wisdom, truth, and understanding. What I'm picking up strongly is that you've probably spent significant time alone trying to make sense of things that didn't add up, reviewing situations in your mind over and over, questioning your own interpretations, and wondering if you were seeing patterns that didn't really exist or missing obvious explanations that would make everything make sense. The hermit tells me that this wasn't wasted time or unnecessary obsession. Every moment you spent in solitary reflection, every instance where you pulled back from social engagement to think things through quietly, every time you chose solitude over engaging with energy that felt wrong or confusing, was you honoring your need for truth and clarity. The hermit is also the teacher and guide, the wise figure who has walked a difficult path and returns to show others the way forward. In the context of this reading about exposure and karmic justice, I'm sensing that you're going to emerge from this experience with wisdom, discernment, and understanding that others desperately need. Your journey through deception into truth, your experience of having your intuition systematically invalidated and then dramatically validated, your process of reclaiming your power, clarity, and trust in your own perception is going to become a lantern for others who are walking similar paths. You might find yourself in a position to help people who are going through comparable experiences, who are being gaslit or manipulated, who are questioning whether they should trust their instincts about people or situations that everyone else seems to accept at face value. The hermit's lantern will be your story, your hard-won discernment, your ability to say with confidence and authority that you've been in the darkness of confusion and deception and found your way to truth and clarity. This card is also reminding you with compassion that not everyone will understand or support your journey right now, especially in the immediate aftermath of revelations. The hermit is solitary by choice because the path of seeking and honoring truth sometimes means standing alone, particularly when others are still invested in comfortable lies or have their own reasons for not wanting to see clearly. You might lose some connections or relationships as you honor your clarity and refuse to pretend you don't see what you now see clearly. The hermit assures you that this is the price of integrity and authentic living, and it's absolutely worth paying. The right people, the authentic connections, the relationships based on truth and mutual respect rather than illusion and performance will remain strong or emerge newly into your life. The final card in this reading is Strength, and it came through with this beautiful, quiet, assured power that feels like the perfect antidote to everything you've been dealing with and the ideal energy to carry you forward. This card shows a woman gently closing the mouth of a lion, representing mastery over raw instincts and reactive impulses through patience, compassion, inner fortitude, and grace under pressure. After learning about deception, systematic cover-ups, betrayal of trust, and the extent to which you were deliberately kept in the dark, you would be completely justified in feeling angry, vengeful, or intensely reactive. Strength is telling you that your true power lies not in matching the energy of those who deceived you, not in becoming bitter or harsh or vengeful, but in maintaining your integrity, grace, and self-control throughout this entire process. The lion in this card represents your primal reactions: rage at being deceived, hurt at being betrayed, the desire to lash out or expose those who hurt you in ways that might feel satisfying or justified in the moment, but wouldn't ultimately serve your highest good or align with who you truly are. The woman represents your higher self, the most evolved and wise part of you that can acknowledge those intense feelings without being controlled or consumed by them. I'm seeing that as everything comes fully to light and becomes known, you're going to be tested in various ways. There will be moments when you could retaliate, spread information in harmful ways, engage in battles and conflicts that would pull you down to a level of operating you don't want to descend to. Strength is asking you to take the high road, not because those who deceived you deserve your restraint or mercy, but because you deserve to maintain your own integrity, inner peace, and alignment with your values. This card is also showing me that you have significantly more resilience and inner strength than you might give yourself credit for or fully recognize. You've been through an extended period of being manipulated, kept deliberately in the dark, gaslit, and made to doubt your own perceptions and sanity. Yet here you are, still standing, still seeking truth, still committed to your own growth, healing, and clarity. That takes tremendous inner strength and resilience. The gentle hand on the lion's mouth tells me that you don't need to become hard, cynical, closed off, or bitter to protect yourself going forward. You can remain open-hearted while being wise and discerning. You can remain compassionate while maintaining firm boundaries. You can remain authentic and true to yourself while absolutely refusing to tolerate deception or manipulation. Strength is reminding you that your power has always been internal, never dependent on controlling what others do, getting them to admit what they've done, or receiving the apologies you deserve. Your power is entirely in how you choose to respond, how you carry yourself through difficult revelations, and how you move forward with dignity, grace, and integrity, regardless of how others choose to behave. As we close this reading, Taurus, I want you to really absorb and integrate the complete arc of what these cards have revealed. You began with the High Priestess, with your intuition already knowing on some level that something was hidden, even when you couldn't articulate or prove what you sensed. Someone used substantial resources and established systems, shown clearly by the Ten of Pentacles, to carefully construct an elaborate cover-up designed to keep you and possibly many others from ever seeing the full truth. They paid for silence, used their influence to control narratives and manage how they were perceived, and created a complex structure meant to protect their secrets indefinitely. But then the tower arrives like lightning from heaven, sudden and utterly undeniable, demolishing those false structures completely and exposing everything they worked so hard to hide. You move into Queen of Swords clarity, seeing truth without any fog of manipulation or confusion, ready to make sharp decisions and communicate firm boundaries. The Four of Swords gives you the time and protected space to process and integrate these massive revelations without pressure to react immediately or perform for others. The Sun brings ultimate illumination, complete clarity, and the freedom and joy of finally living in truth, surrounded by others who validate your experience. The Nine of Swords shows both the anxiety you've carried and the karmic return of that psychological burden to those who created it through their deception. The Moon reveals the specific psychological tactics used against you and teaches you to recognize manipulation patterns immediately. The Hermit honors your solitary journey toward truth and positions you as a guide and light for others walking similar paths. And Strength reminds you that your greatest power lies in maintaining grace, integrity, and inner fortitude, regardless of how others choose to behave. This is fundamentally a story of justice, Taurus. Not the loud, dramatic, revenge-oriented kind, but the steady, inevitable, cosmic kind, where truth simply cannot stay buried forever, and karma ensures everyone eventually experiences the natural consequences of their choices and actions. You don't need to force anything, fight for vindication, or exhaust yourself trying to make others see what they're determined not to acknowledge. The universe is handling this through its own perfect mechanisms and timing, and your role is simply to trust your intuition, honor your need for clarity and processing time, maintain your integrity throughout, and move forward into the authentic, truth-based life that becomes possible when lies no longer define or limit your reality. Remember, this is a general reading for entertainment purposes. Take what resonates deeply with your personal situation and leave what doesn't apply. Trust yourself completely, honor your journey exactly as it unfolds, and know without doubt that you're being guided and supported toward truth, liberation, and authentic living.